I'm the Wyrie Settlement staff person, and I was here in the fall or the early spring before COVID hit. I came and had the opportunity to speak to all of you, and then early this year, Kathleen and Carla and I thought it would be a great opportunity for the three of us to come back. We all work pretty much with either the same employer or the same newcomers coming in. And what an ideal opportunity for you to get to meet us all, because we all provide a level of support. Mine is specifically to the individuals. I'm the boots on the ground to help them feel settled in their community.
Thank you. So we all work with either employers who are hiring foreign nationals or with foreign nationals themselves, as in Nadine's role more so. And we all offer slightly different services that help employers or potential candidates. So it's complementary. So there's no duplication, although it seems like a lot of people. We're actually delivering slightly different services. So let's see. Here's our contact information. So after this presentation or within the coming weeks, if you come across employers who are saying that they want to maybe hire foreign workers, then you have our contact information, and feel free to call us anytime. So through the Western Rend, the programs that I work with the most are programs that will lead to full-time permanent employment. So you're probably more familiar around here with programs that are like the temporary foreign worker program. A lot of the fish plants use that. And in the Indianapolis area, they use the farmers use the same program as well. So those are programs that when people come for, say, 6 months to 8 months or whatever the period of time it is, and then they return to their home country for a while, and then they return the following season. So that's the program that's being used the most, and it's called the Temporary Foreign Worker Program. That program is a federal program, and the programs that I work in the most are provincially, well, part provincial, part federal, actually. The Atlantic Immigration Pilot Project started 4 years ago, and it's going to be turned into a full-time program as of the new January of next year. So that program is to employ full-time continuing positions where the candidates will end up applying for permanent residency, and it's intended for medium to high skilled workers. So there are certain jobs that don't fit, like strictly labor. That would be more the temporary foreign worker program. So in order to qualify, the candidates from the other countries have to have a minimum of grade 12 education. They may have a post-secondary diploma in the field of their work. They need to have a minimum of 1 year of work experience, and they need to be able to speak English well enough, or French well enough, to pass a test. So it's a Canadian Learning Benchmark Level 5. So what I do is that I meet with employers who are interested in hiring, who have a labor shortage, and I try to figure out what it is, in fact, that they need, whether they need full-time permanent employees or whether they need more seasonal kind of employee. And I help them to fill the application. That's basically it. As far as where they find employees, it can be challenging. They're not just kind of dropping on your doorstep, although they have been since COVID. Some people have moved from the larger cities in Canada where they lost their jobs, and in the past year we've seen some of that. So our area has benefited from some of those people that were already in the country and didn't want to go back home yet. And so that's basically, in a nutshell, what I do. There's also another provincial program called the Nominee Program, the Provincial Nominee Program, and each province has one of those. And that's more candidate driven. So a candidate from another country could decide, oh, I think I want to move to Canada. And every year the province determines what they call it the occupations in demand that our province has. So it would be nursing right now. It has been truck drivers in the past. They might have 2 or 3 jobs that they feel that Nova Scotia is short on. Always looking for medical people, doctors. And so we've seen nurses come here on that program who apply. They don't even need to have a job offer. And they can get in the country, and once they're here, they look for a job. It's because there's so many jobs available. So they're allowed to do that. So the nominee program is candidate-driven, whereby the Atlantic Immigration Pilot is when an employer recognizes that they're going to need to do something because they can't find people. So they start the process. So that's what I do. And we do, Carla and I both serve the 3 counties, Shelburne, Digby, Yarmouth. Nadine is more in Digby County. I think that covers, so those are just the slides of the programs that I work with. I talked a bit about the temporary foreign worker program. I also, of course, have a contact at the federal department who helps with that program, so I would refer people. And I'll pass it along to Carla to talk about ISANS, the organization.
Okay, great, thanks. So, ISANS again stands for Immigration Services Association of Nova Scotia, and so we are a nonprofit organization. We are based out of Halifax, but I am here as an onboarder employer engager, again engaging and working with employers to help them recruit newcomers to the area. So our whole vision with ISANS is that we are a community where we can all belong and grow, and our mission is that we want to help immigrants build a future here in Nova Scotia. And just a few fun facts about our agency. We have been serving newcomers for 40 years. We do have over 300 plus qualified staff, 64 countries of staff origin, and 73 languages are spoken by all. So we have a pretty large team, which is pretty amazing. So as my role here, as an onboarder employer, so again, I act as the liaison between the employers and ISANS services. And we want to just support the employers through a variety of different programs. So we want it to benefit, the employers of hiring immigrants to really help strengthen and diversify their workforce. So that's kind of our goal here. And we do that through a variety of services. So again, I talked about my role as helping with the recruitment side. So we do have a skills match tool. It's like an online tool where employers can post their job postings. And in that tool is actually our pre-screened unemployed job seekers who are here in Nova Scotia. I want to say 95% of them are permanent residents and are looking for work. So in that recruitment tool, employers could potentially get job matches, and then they can pull up resumes and recruit and possibly interview that way. So that's kind of our online skills recruitment tool, which is very similar to like a job bank, but it's an internal service with ISANS. Then we also offer on-site recruitment sessions. So if an employer comes to us and has a variety of vacancies, we can potentially, right now we're doing them virtual because of COVID. So we can bring the employer, and we can also bring the pre-screened clients who potentially could be good candidates for their positions. We can bring them under one roof, and they can do the information session, and then they can do interviews right on the site, right on the spot. We also offer a workplace culture program, which is to help employers with onboarding. So to onboard newcomers, to really help welcome them into their business. We also offer a professional mentorship program where basically it's kind of self-explanatory. Employers can become mentors to the new candidate here in Nova Scotia. English in the Workplace, which is a great program for employers to kind of have their candidates do English language. It's typically 2 90-minute sessions per week for potentially up to 12 weeks. So if the candidate needs some extra English language training, we can offer that. And we also have a professional practice program, which is a wage subsidy program, where we can offer employers up to 6 weeks to hire a newcomer, and that gives the newcomer potentially good Canadian work experience, and then it also offers the employer an opportunity to get to know that individual and whether there's a good fit or not. There's no strings attached. We take care of all of it, meaning the wages, the liability, the insurance, just so again it provides that work experience for the candidate, and then hopefully it's a good fit for the employer too. So those are just a few that we offer. So as you've seen, Kathleen mentioned about our contact information up there. So if you guys have employers that are looking to help recruit, retain onboard, please have them contact me. Thanks.
So Y-Reach is the one-on-one direct service to the newcomers. And the list of what we provide hasn't changed. It's really not clear. I like to tell my newcomers that it literally is whatever your needs are, call me first, and I'll help you manage through whatever the government ease is that you have to get through. And I'll just give you a couple of examples. Gidden Fisheries just recently laid off their workforce because the lobster area closed where they were getting lobsters from. All of those people need help applying for employment insurance. Very few of those people are skilled at reading English online from a government program who doesn't recognize that the people who are accessing their program maybe don't understand our lingo here in Canada. So I've spent hours helping my newcomers apply for employment insurance. I have a family here with 6 youngsters who are all now eligible to become Canadian citizens. So I've been helping them to do the citizenship applications. I had another young man come in late 2019. I might have told you this story. He wanted to learn how to get a hunting license here in Nova Scotia, and I helped him with that. So it really is dependent on what that person needs at the time I meet with them. We also offer English language services, and up until COVID-19, that was person to person. Now, at the office, it's person to person, but if the individual can't come to the office, my English language instructor is doing it via Zoom. We also are supposed to be holding welcoming events, but COVID-19 has put a big wrench into any kind of welcoming event that I would do. And then one of my bigger rules is helping the person do the paperwork for one of the steps in applying for their permanent residency. It's called the Atlantic Immigration Pilot Project Needs Assessment and Settlement Plan. Both of those documents are a key component in the application that goes into Nova Scotia Office of Immigration. So the employer would call me, or the individual would call me and say, Nadine, I need a needs assessment, and I meet with them and do that paperwork. So you might have wondered what we've been doing since the last time I saw you, and I'm really thrilled to tell you that we have had an incredible increase in the number of individuals who've moved into the town of Digby. And now my 32 is either individuals or families. Some of them are coming in under AIP. We have a new refugee family here in town. So a diversity of people who now call Digby home. And I have a really great story to tell you in just a minute about one of our new residents. And I'm working with 7 different employers in their recruitment activities under the AIPP. A couple of them are Riverside Lobster, of course, they've been doing this for years. AF Terrio just came on last year. Synergy Seafood down on the French Shore, they just came on. Also working with a new employer who's brought in a whole bunch of people is Meadowloo Lodge out in Bridgetown. So it's a diversity of the type of people that are coming in and what they're bringing to Nova Scotia in terms of their skill set. And then last December, we hosted a virtual festival because we couldn't do it face-to-face. It was called From Newcomer to Neighbor. And one of the things that you often hear is, they come here and they take our jobs, or they come here and go on social assistance. So what we wanted to do is we wanted to highlight the contribution that our newcomers are making to our communities. So we took the 5 days and we split it up across rural Nova Scotia. No Halifax stories, just stories from rural Nova Scotia. And Digby was Thursday. And throughout the day, we featured interviews with, one of the interviews we did was with Val Stackhouse from the Digby Pines about the plans that they've got going for the Pines. We did a cultural song with one of the families here in Digby. They did a Christmas carol in Korean. And we had cooking on there, and we had newcomers who have moved to the area and what's happened. One of them got a house and now they've started their own business. So all really good news stories about how they're giving back to the community that they're living in. And then, next slide. So what's next for the town of Digby? Well, right now, not so much just for the town, but for all of the people I serve in the area, one of the tough things to do is apply for your Canadian citizenship when you qualify. I don't know how many of you have applied for Canadian citizenship recently, but it is not a cakewalk. You have to do an exam where they ask you 20 questions and you have to get 15 correct answers. And they're asking you questions about what year was Confederation and who is Louis Riel, and just a host of questions about Canada, which makes sense. But imagine you're a newcomer and you're 50 years old learning Canadian history. Not easy. So I offer a weekly prep course where I break the information down and I talk them through it so that they understand the information a little bit better. And every so often we do little quizzes and stuff. And hopefully the 10-week program will help them prepare for going to write their citizenship test. And then I'm also hosting a bi-weekly coffee and conversation. One of the things that Carla mentioned to you is language support. And for many of our newcomers, casual conversation in English is not easy. So we go and we have coffee and we sit around and we talk. I tell them all my stories about living out on Bayview, and they tell me stories about their kids, and very casual, very low key, but it helps build their confidence in being able to communicate with the people that they interact with on a daily basis. And then the last thing that I'm doing right now is school settlement. None of the schools in our area are allowing me into the school now because of the requirements of COVID-19 and not bringing in outsiders who don't have any need to be at the school. And so what I'm doing is I'm actually providing the school settlement support in the children's home, helping them improve their English through phonetics and things like that. So that's it for us. We did have a question opportunity at the end. If you have any questions for us, feel free to ask.
Any questions? So with COVID, are the number of employees seeking job placements, are they up, it's down? Is it,
You mean local?
the number of local employees looking for workers.
Employers?
What are you asking, whether the employers are having a hard time filling the jobs?
I'm asking, are there employers asking for employees? Are the jobs there for these?
Yes, there are jobs.
Yeah,
There are jobs that they can't fill with local employees. I think that the government supports that have been out there for probably a year are kind of causing, let's say, less interest in work. And it's challenging sometimes to find employees.
Yeah.
A lot of common places where there's a shortage would be restaurant industry, service, retail, fisheries, boat builders can never find enough people.
Because I see a lot of ads on social media for jobs. So
I would say here the sector that's suffering the most in Southwest Nova would be tourism, and the rest seems to be business as usual and doesn't seem to be suffering too much. But all the tourism, of course, the hotels, motels, full service restaurants that have had to cut down to half of the seating, they're definitely experiencing a shortfall. But some of them have decided to go takeout only, thereby reducing their expenses, their labor costs, and are doing quite well. So all depends. Sorry, I didn't.
No, that's okay.
Yeah.
Right, yeah. Yeah, we're just kind of seeing very common, even employers are struggling for some of their employees to come back as well. So then therefore there's more positions opening up. Yes. Just want to add that.
And Meadowlee Lodge, what they've been hiring is the graduate students from Ontario who are coming in for the CCA positions.
Okay.
And in the last 6 weeks, they've hired 7 new employees into the lodge. So big demand in that area. I anticipate then when Villa Acadienne gets their new building up and operational, they're going to be back looking for newcomers to come in. The challenge for them is French is their primary language of service, right? So it's a smaller pool that they can hire from. But I know at the beginning of 2020, they were desperate to find a couple of nurses to go in there and had found 2. And then they made a connection with St. Anne and were able to get a couple of students from St. Anne to join their workforce. So the demand, I think, is there. It's if the employer isn't designated, sometimes getting that designation is a bit daunting for the employer, and so they maybe don't look to immigration as easily as what they should because of the process to get designated. But more and more in this area are. We have 2 newcomers at Sanford and Associates.
Oh, yeah.
And one of them was a graduate from Cape Breton, and the other was a lady who had come back into this area. She had family in the area, and she'd come back into the area, got her own job through Sanford, and now she's part of his workforce as well.
How are you dealing with the challenges of housing?
Oh, did you really want to raise
And
that question?
And transportation, can I add to
And
that
transportation,
as well?
yeah. No,
Yeah.
they're definite challenges.
Huge.
I know that the Cornwallis Park around here has apartments that they've been using to at least come in and try to find an apartment that's more full-time, maybe permanent, but they've been using some apartments there for some of the newcomers. But it is definitely something that we need to emphasize. At the REN, just some of you probably are aware, but there's a new position that just started called the Local Immigration Partnership. And Brenda Lagrande, who used to be in the Connector program or the Connector manager of the Connector program, has taken on that role. It's a 3-year project, and the goal will be to work with all the community members to try to find solutions to challenges.
The trouble with ABCC is they are in such demand because they're also covering the 14-day self-isolation period for anybody who's coming in. The last 2 times I connected with them, they had no short-term temporary left, which has really created even a bigger gap in any of the communities because they were my backstop for people coming in. So yeah, if you can put a building up really quickly, we would really appreciate it.
There's definitely an opportunity, and some of us have had a meeting with developers from Halifax about a year ago, and they since have developed housing in Pimlico and in Shelburne, I believe. Barrington. So there are people, like, it's a matter of getting the word out, connecting with people. The builders decided to have a meeting with us because they are covering the entire province. They're based in Halifax, and they connected with us, and they were trying to determine what the towns were that had the most demand, and so they are kind of starting. So it's a matter of maybe communities trying to make contacts with developers, people who actually build for a living and provide housing for a living, like a real solid company. In Yarmouth, I know that there are a few, people who are doing it as an aside to the business that they run, or that are doing it kind of part-time and doing something else, and they're building new units on a regular basis. So it's something, there's an opportunity for anybody who's interested in getting in that business.
So what's the housing demand like just for this area? Is there a number, like is there 10 families?
You remember the good story that I was gonna tell you?
Yeah.
So I have a family that moved in under the AIPP. She got her permanent residency earlier this year. She has finished her agreement with the employer that brought her in. She's opening up her own business here in Digby. Actually, she's going to become an immigration consultant. And they bought property up behind the church. I think it's behind the church, just over here. And she's building a house there for herself and her mom and the 2 children that she has with her. And then she's building another section on the house. And a couple from the church are going to sell their property and take the other half of the house, which I think is a tremendous good news story. But if you had 10 units in this area available for rent, I bet you in the next 2.5 months I could rent those units for you just with the people coming in. Yeah. It's a hot market here, not just for housing sales, but for rental. And there's nobody that you can call up and say, I have a family arriving with 3 children. What do you have available? There's nobody you can call. So I generally go back to my newcomers, because some of them are in buildings in the area, and say, who's your landlord? Are there any vacancies in your building? Just trying to find places for people to go.
Any other questions? I have one more. The one you said with the Guinea that they're laying off and now going on unemployment and helping those file to fill them out. Are they also looking for other jobs? Like, do they want to go back to Guinea, or can they go somewhere else? Are they permitted to go somewhere else?
So they're on a recall from Guinea. As soon as the next lobster area opens up, Guinea will recall them. In order to be eligible for EI, they have to be looking for, and available for other employment. So the challenge for them would be, if they were able to secure other employment, they would have to get a new work permit that would allow them to go and work for that other employer. But they do know that they have an obligation to work. Once they get their permanent residency and their social insurance number changes from the 9 to whatever we're at now, then they're off the hook as far as that work permit is concerned. And at least half of that workforce now are just waiting for that change from AIPP status to permanent resident status.
Roughly how many?
Last year, I would say there were 15 that came in, and the majority of them are still in the area.
Good.
Well, thank you very much for your time. We
Yes,
definitely
thank you.
appreciate it. And Leslie, I'll send you an updated slide deck so that I get that name fixed.
Perfect.
And then maybe you could distribute it to the board for me, so that the next time we come, you don't have to make fun of me.
Maybe it'll be correct though.
It will be. This time it will be correct.
No, but I mean, just leave it the way it is.
Oh.
I
I would never do that. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you very much.
Oh, and I've left some cards here just in case you lost the ones I gave you before.
Okay.
And if you do happen to meet anybody in your travels that they're new to the area and they need some help, please don't hesitate to give them my name and my telephone number. I'm always happy to help them. Even if I can't provide them with ongoing service, I can definitely point them in the right direction for help.
All right, thank you
Great,
so
thank
much.
you.
Have a good night.
Okay. We'll move on to previous minutes, March 15th, 2021. Has everyone had a chance to look at them? Can you get a motion for approval? Motion to approve. Seconder?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, motion carried. Special meeting of March 30th, 2021. Any questions with that one? No? Get a motion for that, please.
So moved.
Seconder,
So second.
all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Nay.
Motion carries. One nay.
Just kidding. I can't vote for and against.
All right, business arising from the minutes, draft expression of interest for developers. That can be-
So that's basically still a work in progress. Do some research, it's just on there so that it doesn't get forgotten about. So we, hopefully, maybe the next month I'll have something for council to look at.
Wait, can I ask a quick question?
Sure.
Since the Ren people or the person from the Ren's gone, was that pre-planned prior to someone bad-mouthing them on Friday, or?
Yes.
Okay.
I mean, no.
Oh, that was pretty quick, that's all.
It's interesting to see that the numbers was like 10 units isn't that bad, so some of that property that we do have, I mean, if they're coming from Halifax to develop, then hey. It's
So
not
if you
that we
add
don't have enough people, but at least they're doing it.
But that's the start of figuring out what the need is, right?
That's right,
So
yeah.
that's 10 there.
Yeah.
And what else is out there?
Yeah,
that we need,
exactly.
right? Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, so it was interesting to hear that, that's for sure.
Yeah.
All right, we'll move on to the, are you done with that one, Tom?
Yeah.
Okay, we'll move on to the CAO report, yeah, the staff can move up, or,
So we get to being late.
I'm right on time. I was in the parking lot at 5 minutes.
all right. Do you wanna go through it all, or do you wanna just highlight them, or is totally up to you?
So, planning department, issued 3 development permits for the month of March. 2 building permits from the building department in the month of March. Fire department for the month of March were 12 fire calls, 4 calls were in town, and 12, well, I guess that doesn't add up. 8 in, the district of Digby. The Marketing and Promotions Levy Act, so the act had received second reading and was considered by the Private and Local Bill Committee on Monday, April the 12th, and has been referred to the Committee of the Whole, which is expected to pass to that stage on the 14th. So basically, it has passed at this point. There's an update to that. It has passed. So I think now the next step is Royal Assent. So, and it'll become law. Then the work begins.
So that, are we still in time for the summer, or no? You think we'd be in time for the summer?
No. No, because we've still got the bylaws to go through.
Right.
Do that, and that, so, no, we're looking at probably for next season, maybe better time, because there was, we had heard some questions on whether the timing was right, but, you know, because of COVID, but however, next year should be better, we hope. For the curbside collection and transportation source, separated solid waste, an agreement between Digby Salvage and Disposal Limited and Town of Digby has been executed. The agreement is effective April 1, 2021 to March 31st, 2026. Municipal Government Act amendments, the province announced that it is amending the MGA to allow municipalities and villages to hold virtual council meetings. Even once the state of emergency is removed, the bill was introduced for first reading, and I haven't heard whether it's moved on from there, but I assume that it has. Seems like they're the legislature's in full steam ahead, ramming things through, so. Senior management team, the review of the human resource policy manual continues. Policies reviewed for the hours of work policy, employee grievance policy, and attendance and absenteeism policy. The hours of work policy was the only policy requiring amendments and which will be on later for council consideration. Dangerous and unsightly policy, the draft has been reviewed by legal counsel, and so there's no changes was recommended by legal counsel. And so the senior management team also reviewed it, and so that's later on the agenda for council consideration. Municipal Wellness Grant Program. The Municipal Wellness Grant Program encourages municipalities across Nova Scotia to help promote wellness through the implementation of health, promoting programs, approaches, or ideas in the workplace. So the grants are only available for those that are in the NSFM group benefits, which we are a participant in that. We are intending on making an application to see if we can get some funding. Digby Station, so the memorandum of understanding between the town and Nova Scotia Health Authority has been executed until August 31st, 2021. Seems like they keep renewing every 3 months. Well, we're doing pretty good since it was only going to be 3 months to begin with. So this is about the 4th amendment, so almost. No, that's good. Municipal Innovation Program funding. So the Tri-County Regional Planning Project under the Municipal Innovation Program has been approved. Department of Municipal Affairs will be coordinating a public announcement in the interim. They ask that we keep the funding confirmation confidential. I don't get it, you know, they send you emails and stuff. Oh, you got good news, but don't tell nobody. So, anyway, so the Tri-County Regional Planning Project includes the District of Yarmouth, District of Barrington, District of Digby, District of Shelburne, and District of Yarmouth, Town of Yarmouth, and Town of Shelburne. Beach shoreline cleanup. Scotian Shores have contacted me concerning doing the beach shoreline cleanup along the shoreline of the town. They have conducted many cleanups around the province and depend highly on volunteers. They are scheduled to be in Digby on May 22nd. They will be recruiting local volunteers, and the only thing they have asked from the town is to help in promoting the event and the waiving of the tipping fees, which is consistent with other beach sweeps in the past. Basically, any other beach sweep that is, we basically do not charge the tipping fee. We ignore the tipping fees as a town. We have to pay them when they go to the landfill, but they don't have to pay when they deliver them to the, or they're picked up to take them to our transfer
Is
station.
a motion to do that
No, not unless you want to. It's just basically been standard policy that we've always done that,
okay.
so. The AMA regional meeting, so the Association of Municipal Administrators of Nova Scotia held a regional meeting in person in Yarmouth on Thursday, April 15th. And the region encompasses from the municipal units in the Tri-County area. Housing deficits were discussed by the group, and there was much discontent expressed with municipal units not having input into housing budgets, and that they dictated the amount each unit must pay. The region is sending a letter to the AMA-MS president requesting that the AMA board move this issue to a higher priority level. Another topic was the amendments of the MGA that are currently going through the spring legislature. There was considerable concerns of the lack of consultation with municipal units, and before they presented them to the House, or even the legislation was drafted. The AMA-NS will be holding a virtual spring conference June 9th to the 11th, and we're planning to have an in-person conference in the fall, hopefully. So that's my report.
Do you have any questions? No? Get a motion to approve CAO reports.
So moved.
Seconder,
Second it.
all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Moving on to the Director of Finance report. It's in your package as well.
So the statement of operations, there's a number of large adjustments still to go in there, the housing deficit, as we just mentioned, and the COVID-19 grant, most of that has to be moved out. Will leave us with, we'll still end up with a small surplus, but so close to budget, we're a small surplus. So all in all, pretty much the plan. Of note, the insurance renewal, I think we've already mentioned it, insurance rates across the board everywhere seem to be high as a result of COVID, and the markets, although the markets have all rebounded, so I'm not quite sure what the insurance company's argument is now. But anyway, they're up for everyone. Prices are sticky downward, hard to say if they'll come down. And 53 Mount Street rental arrears. Every year we need to prompt them. Normally they do February 1st. I guess the last rent renewal has been March 1st. So as of March 1st, they're now up to 2 years in arrears. Not sure why they dropped the ball on that, but conversation today, they wanted an invoice, and then I said, well, no, we don't normally do invoices, and so how much is it? I said, I don't have the lease in front of me, but you have the lease, and it's your obligation to pay. So after some prompting, they said, sorry, we'll try to get it paid in the next couple of days. And we also don't have the insurance information that we require. So throughout the years, they haven't, let's see, in 16, 17, 18, 19, those were all due at the beginning of February. They paid in July, then they paid in March, they paid in June, paid in September after prompting, and now for 20 and 21, those amounts are still due. So they're not on the ball, I can certainly say that.
We can't send them an invoice?
We can send them an invoice, but that's not how a lease works. So basically, a lease is you pay or you're in breach of the lease and we terminate.
Yeah.
I mean, we start getting into offering invoices for every single lease. I mean, imagine every landlord having to bill their tenant every month with a bill.
Well, I know, but this is 2 years. I mean, this is not acceptable.
No, it's not. So,
Should we start with a letter?
well, each time they're late, they get an email, and they get a follow-up email, then they get another follow-up email. So I mean, it's somebody that I don't know whether they'll get any better. I don't know.
So do we need to pick a date to draw a line in the sand?
I'm not sure.
Seems to me we're not going to get our money.
Well, I have a feeling we're going to get our money. We'll probably get it, he said, in the next couple of days. That probably means we'll get our money in 2 weeks, or I'll have to remind them again.
Which money, the first year there?
Both, hopefully.
Can I hold you to that?
I don't.
Are you able to give us an approximate amount for what a year's?
Yeah, 4,000. $869 is what the rent used to be. The new lease is $5,829. So that amount plus HST is due for the last
Or $9,000 in arrears.
over $10,000, yeah. This year really started March 1st, so this year they're only, I guess, technically 45 days late, but still, it's late.
Did they pay utilities stuff of that, Matthew?
What's that?
Did we pay the water bill, or did they?
No, they pay
Pay
all
all
the
the
costs. Yeah.
Is it
We
paid?
pay any utilities as part and parcel to the lease.
Is the water bill paid?
So they get,
Oh, I think so. I would know about that one. That's, yeah, haven't heard any problems there.
Yeah.
so they make one payment per year for the. Didn't they mention anything, they didn't mention anything about COVID, that's why they haven't paid?
No, I don't think it's a financial hardship problem. I think it's a administrative burden, or they just don't care.
Well, they should care.
They should care.
Well,
I mean, the citizens of Digby are kind enough to give them a place to do business.
So we have no other, like I know we rent a place next door, they're paid up all the
Yeah.
towns,
They don't pay on time, but they pay during the month. They pay the money that's due.
So they never more than 30 days a year.
Right.
well, I don't think we should be letting this go
No.
2 years, I mean, this is,
No.
certainly not acceptable. Well, maybe next month by then we'll be paid up and I don't know what we'll do, but,
Well, my conversation with him today was very to the point and businesslike. He said, well, can you send me an invoice? Well, I wonder how much it is we owe. And I said, the lease obligation, for payment of the lease in the contract, didn't say with any anger, just said it clearly, said it's up to the lease lessee in every lease to simply make the payment on time. If payment is not made on time, it's considered a material breach of the contract, and the town can terminate. And then I left some silence for him to think about it. And I finally said, well, it'll probably be discussed tonight at the meeting.
Point of order, we're gonna get into he said, she said,
Yeah.
this should be on camera.
All right, so we'll just continue on, and we have something in camera coming up anyway, so
So we just move it there.
we can move it there. Sure. All right. Motion to accept the Director of Finance's reports. Thank you, Matt. Motion. Seconder?
second,
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carried. Director of Public Works.
So, just, I'll include weekly invoices. We've ordered a new laser level for all the construction projects we're doing. Got our asphalt pricing for the 2021 summer. Worked on my year end, new traffic light trucks are here, and just waiting for the last roll of wire to show up. Went over some proposed projects with Sharon at the rink, which we're going to be assisting with some of the projects. Started working on the pre-design of the Rapid Road for the Armor Rock, and so we can build the road up to prevent from salt water from entering the road. For wastewater, completed daily duties and water test, checked the air relief valves, and one had to be removed to be serviced. Cleaned UV number 2, completed bi-weekly water samples. Had pulled a pump station 6, which is the lift station by the rink, and had baby wipes stuck in it. Changed oil on the blowers in Smith's Cove. One thing with wastewater, we did have a bad sewer main plug down by Station 4, which is across from the old Wolfrat building, and it was actually solid full of baby wipes and Lysol wipes, and it caused a nasty backup down there. Streets, we did some snow removal, which is getting late in the year, but we did that. And wayfinding project, all the signposts are ready to be installed, which was approved in last year's funding under capital projects. Started working in the parks, and then we just did our daily duties, the garbage run, clean culvert ends, clean catch basins, trash compaction, and yard waste. Equipment, the new 5-ton, we have it back now. We replaced all the sensors in the DAF unit in the truck, and this work was not under warranty. And we have received the invoice, and it was around $7,000 to have the car fixed. Building maintenance, capital projects, the fire hall washroom upgrades. I called last week about the sprinklers, seeing why they're not here yet. They told me they forgot to order them because the person went out on sick leave. So it's another 2 to 3 weeks, what they told me, before we receive the sprinkler heads for the washrooms. Otherwise, everything else is basically done 99%. So the Forest Band and Admiral's Walk is moving forward. As you can tell, the guys are down there today working. They're close to Dean Kemley's property, so we can get that finished and get that topsoil. 2nd Avenue by the courthouse, it's completed. Just letting the road sit so that we can ensure there's no settling of the road. Materials for 2nd Avenue extension from St. Mary's to St. George have arrived, and we have them in our compound. Lift station 1 and 2 are complete. We put Class A by the food bank. The claim was money back there, and we had to fix the front door of the building. We started putting new hand-free sanitizing products up in all the bathrooms and all the buildings that we own. Our fire extinguishers have been inspected for the 2021 year. And personnel, we have 1 employee off of medical leave, and we had 2 employees that wrote their OIT. That's what I got.
Question. The asphalt person, is it up? Yeah.
It's up about 5%, so it's not bad. I was kind of expecting a lot more, so not complaining, put that way.
And are the car distributors here yet?
They're not. Called left a message Thursday, I think it was, and they got back to me. So I'm kind of surprised they're not here because it's strange. So I'll send them an email maybe tomorrow. That's what I'll do. So okay.
Any other spots you put Class A?
Where do we need some?
I told you.
Did you go through the CAO?
I got an email from somebody asking for Class A because it's really muddy by their house. I spoke to the Director of Public Works, and obviously I believe he should be fired.
Remember they're watching that?
He said he called you.
I might be able to get a job.
Can I ask a more serious question about 2nd Avenue? So when you guys are doing that, is it just you're putting in a road, there's no, no infrastructure going underneath the road at this point?
Which piece 2nd Avenue?
The one you referenced on there? The one behind the courthouse?
Behind the courthouse, there's already a sewer main there.
There is? Okay.
But water service down through there, storm sewer.
Okay.
So the infrastructure's there now.
It looks good.
Are 2 going down St. George Street, you're gonna have to put sewage underneath there, or just Class A?
I've ordered a whole bunch of pit run to build up the very bottom of the road. Because the upper part of the road on the St. Mary side is fine enough, but the lower part down by St. George isn't. So I think it's kind of built up like 2.5 feet, if I remember correctly, quite a bit. So, yeah, but it'll give us nice. There won't be any dips in the road or anything like all that. So,
Are those 2 pieces on the paving agenda?
I don't think they're on the list for anytime soon. We didn't allow for paving. We're just allowed to make the road, put the infrastructure in, make it passable, so it's ready for development.
And is there any talk with the farmer's market for getting running? I don't know when you're planning on opening, but are we sodding or what are we doing there? Or?
Do you want to elaborate on that?
It's the first part of May, but they're going to use from the sidewalk to the road, the grassy area there until everything gets settled down.
Okay.
Yeah, and they're aware of it.
All right. Anyone have any other questions for Ed? If not, can we get a motion to accept his report?
Move to accept Ed's report.
Second it?
I'll second that.
All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. Special Constable, dangerous and unsightly administrator report.
For the month of March, I had 4 properties on the list here. Obviously, 10 Carlton, they're still monitoring that property. 142 Victoria Street. I had spoken with the landlord in regards to this. There was a little bit of a situation there with this tenant. This tenant had to be served by the sheriff in order to remove him from the premise. So that's in the midst of being cleaned up. The landlord's been there, has been removing things from the property, and I'm just still monitoring that one. 63 Sydney Street. This building had been renovated, and there was remaining scrap building materials that were left over in the owner's yard quite some time. And the remnants of these materials have been blown across the road into the Public Works compound. So I finally contacted the owner of the premise, and he's assured me through his employer that they will have a dumpster there to clean it up. 92 Church Street. This is a 4-unit apartment complex owned by Nova Scotia Housing and Municipal Affairs. I have received several complaints regarding garbage flowing into neighboring yards. And I spoke with the property manager and explained to her that there's not adequate enough garbage dumpster on the property. 4 units are entitled up to 40 bags of garbage. And what's happening is it'll overflow, and a lot of the garbage is being left on the ground, and hence anything from dogs, cats, rodents are getting into it and spreading it everywhere. So she has assured me that there's going to be wooden structures with lids that are going to be adequate enough to put the garbage in. It's not only that property, but the other properties for the Nova Scotia Housing Affairs. Because that's the problem they're having with a lot of the properties, is there's not proper dumpster there.
Is that on Victoria, Church, that's way at the end, is it, Bruce?
That's a yellow.
I noticed the other day they had some wooden garbages there, so they must have, they're in, I've seen them, yeah.
Yeah, about 6 bags of garbage each.
Yeah, probably.
About 6 bags of garbage?
Yeah.
Okay. I was wrong on my count there.
Yeah, they're big. Yeah. It's funny off the cuff, people are putting their garbage out today for another week. Like, why?
That's a lot of problems we run into.
Yeah.
And they wonder why they have rodent problems.
Yeah. It's strange. Yeah. It is strange.
And I've asked, actually housing, because they have units up on King Street and on 3rd Avenue and down the south end. I've asked them to please tell their tenants to pull the compost bins back. A lot of those are flopping over in the wind. And moving on to my report for protective services. All the cameras are up in full operation. Parking control, I've spoken with some of the local businesses downtown regarding the employees parking on Main Street again. So they assured me that they would talk to their employees and have them not park down there and to the marshalling yard. I had given 2 warnings out. Civic address, 1 civic address added for the month of March, and that was 112 King Street. Dog control, 1 dog impounded. Owner was contacted, paid the impound fee, and the dog was released to the owner. Crossing guards, there was nothing to report at this time. Solid waste management, nothing to report at this time. Taxi licenses, Mr. Robert Wade, Digby Taxi, is retiring and has turned his cab company over to Mr. Jerry Thompson. The cab company will remain as Digby Taxi. You might see them traveling around together in Jerry's car. Bylaw violations, 1 violation under the dog bylaw, a fine of $337.50 had been issued. That concluded my report.
Any questions? Tom, a while back with the taxis, was there something that we couldn't have any more taxi cab companies, or it's a maximum? What was that? Or that is so many cabs and.
We don't have, in our bylaw, we don't have a limit. Because basically, we figure that they will, sort of control themselves as far as how many companies can be in this small town, right? Yeah.
Is it still issued with the license, the little sticker?
Yeah.
No, I just thought there was something that, no new companies, but.
Now, a new company can come in, and it's up to them to see whether they can survive or not.
All right,
Exactly.
Go back to, actually, the unsaid premises, 63 Sydney Street. Is that where they have like the impromptu car park on the other side of the road?
I'm not certain about that.
Okay. Just wondering if there's an issue with it in the wintertime when they're plowing, because it seems like there's a lot of vehicles there for the.
Well, the gentleman I spoke to about the renovations and all the stuff that's piled in his yard, he's looking at that as a rental unit.
Okay.
So he gutted it all out, everything has been done inside, it's just that him getting back and getting rid of that stuff.
I think those cars are for the apartment building next to it. There's another one next to it.
Okay.
Like a little two-story.
Yeah, well, just the
They're
number
all-
of vehicles for all the, like the spots there, I have
Yeah.
no idea how many people, can manage to be in those little places.
Yeah, I think that's what, I thought they were still working on the inside of that other place, but they're actually tenants of that other.
Okay.
Yeah.
With the, if somebody's renovating a property for a rental, yeah, wouldn't it be better off to have a dumpster?
You would think. That's what he should
Could
have.
that not be part of our suggestion to them, or policy, or bylaw, or whatever?
So, when people get a building permit for renovations, can it be included in there, or has it anything to do with that? Cause inside, they don't get a permit, do they?
Well, usually they don't get, unless there's structural changes. If they don't get a development permit, if there's no change of use or no structural changes on the inside. But most contractors have dumpsters
Yeah.
or their own thing. So these obviously can't be a good contractor. Is usually the contractor, because in the contract, the waste disposal is part and parcel of the contract that you're paying for.
Yeah, cause technically, they can't leave it up for us to pick up. They have to,
Yeah.
same with leaves
Yeah.
and brushes.
We don't do construction, demolition, collection.
Alright, so can we get a motion to accept both of those reports from the special counsel?
So moved.
Seconder,
Second.
all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Opposed, motion carried. Alright, moving on to correspondence, Ocean View Dance Academy. So they want to use the marina. I just noticed one thing, reading through it, the last line basically is 163 over the 150, or is there a 150 limit?
It's gonna depend on the regulations at that particular time. Right now, 150 is the maximum. And it not only goes for this request, but also the subsequent requests that are there. My suggestion is that it would be, in order to apply for use of town property or that type of thing, that they have to give us a plan, COVID-19 plan that is acceptable to us. And before anything is granted, everything's looked this far. And the farmer's market, we're gonna be giving them their permit very shortly. They have a COVID-19 plan of how they're gonna going to do that. We know that. Business Association that wants to do the summer concerts. They have submitted a plan as to how they're gonna do that to meet the COVID-19 restrictions. So I don't see that this should be any different. And, so basically, it is an outdoor event, so to speak, but it's, you said right there, estimated to be 163 minus general public. Well, I don't know what minus general public is going to mean. It should be plus general public, not minus.
Yeah.
Right?
And they just come out with, if you can't social distance of the sidewalk there, you have to wear masks, that's it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was as of Friday.
Yeah.
And this came on the 13th, so before that announcement.
Well, one of them doesn't need them till June, so I think we should just contact them till, it's completely, the plan is complete, and unless you'd like a motion on it or whatever, but.
No, I think that, I think that basically, and I'll reserve my phone until we get there.
All right, so we'll contact them and ask them to come up with a COVID-19 plan. And reserve your comments now.
So, on that, I think the same thing applies. I don't know how, I think, number one, I don't know how they're ever gonna have a dance, because they can't have a dance.
No. Yep. And if they dance close, gotta wear a mask.
So,
Right?
yeah.
That's no
Everybody
fun.
dances through the park.
Yeah. All fast dances.
Yeah. So, but I think there needs to be a plan.
I can actually speak to it a little bit, because I talked to Tanya one day down at Seabiscuit. She's trying to assist some of the students in planning something. As you can see in the email, they've since come back and said, oh, we think we can do it at the Pines because we're at, 99 people or something, just under the limit the Pines could accommodate. But that doesn't really account for parents or anyone else who may be there.
Right.
So she's trying to help them out, just sort of concerned that, these kids have had a rough year and a half in terms of what their high school experience was, and was trying to offer a little expertise from her part in terms of planning stuff. Thought that was potentially a solution for it. In terms of like the particulars, she's got a fairly good idea. So I think if you went back to her and said, what would the plan be, she could probably give you really solid details, and had even considered if there are parents who are in a viewing gallery, keep the kids across the road from where the parents are. She was willing to hire a photographer to make it so that instead of every single family sending in someone to take pictures of their kids, for the photographer to do it and then send pictures out to the families from there. So to help keep distance, keep space. So she's put a fair amount of thought into it. But right now the kids have come up with a totally separate plan that I am sure is going to collapse under that 99 person thing when the Pines finds out that, parents are probably going to want to show up there too. In terms of the 150, maybe we have to get creative in thinking of it as, let's separate the town into two separate areas. And you still limit it, so only 150 people can end up on one side of the town versus the other. But if we work with them to find a potential solution, they might be able to make that work. And I'll go on and say that for those kids, they probably deserve to have something. Maybe they can't have a traditional dance and all that, but if you keep it to less than 150 in a given area, it might be something nice to do for the graduating class of 2021, instead of them, to have absolutely nothing at the end of the year, because it's probably not going to be quite the same to go back and do it when things are a little safer or numbers are a little higher. But going back to the original thing, if you go back to Tanya and ask for a detailed thing, she'll probably give it to you. And she's probably got it almost all done already.
So we will need a plan, a COVID plan from them to see how they're gonna do it.
Because they basically, ultimately, we will be liable.
Yeah.
I think the biggest thing is control. If you're at the Pines, they can control the situation, but if you're at the marina, that's an open air public event.
Yeah. The problem you find at the marina as well is because of the marina, if you close it off, that's fine, but people wanna get on their boats too.
Yes.
And it's a very hard place to just close off, right?
There's parking for business there too.
I do like the idea of coming down the boardwalk and up to the center, that's a neat idea.
Well, when you think about their graduation dance, it's actually just a photo opportunity for parents, really.
Yeah.
Could they do the same sort of thing we're talking about for the Relay for Life and do a one-way walk?
Well, I think, I mean, I don't wanna hardly go on about it, but I know last year, the graduation class did something at the Pines, so it's probably the best thing to do is ask the Pines first, or if they insist in downtown to bring up the plan, right, so.
Yeah.
So we'll send them a letter saying this is the one prior to see if we can get a COVID plan. So, like Tom said, we have to protect ourselves, right?
Yeah.
So. All right. New business, draft of policy 2021-03, dangerous and unsightly premises policy. Yeah, let's see if I can find it.
As you can see, it's quite a lengthy policy compared to the one page that used to be. And so what it does do is lay out the ground rules for staff and also so council understands as well the processes. And so I guess I'll start with just ask if there's any questions, concerns.
Anyone?
Do you think the timelines are compact enough, Tom?
I think that some of the timelines, this policy has to be in conjunction with what's in the Municipal Government Act, right? We can't override what's in the municipal government.
That's part of our problem was, it's never ending circles, right?
Yeah.
So could we get to a resolution in a faster time, I guess is my real question.
I mean, basically, I think that if you have people, you issue an order and you don't give them sufficient time, then they can apply to a court and say, you know, and then our 14 days or whatever is going to be 40 days and 60 days and 100 days because time you get to the courts, right? Yeah. And I mean, basically we need to have, the thing is, if you give somebody 14 days, we're hoping that they'll have, they may get it done in 7 days, right? Yeah. I mean, some people will. Some people will do it and it'll be all wrapped up within the 14 days, right? It's just that we need to have so that we know when the next step clicks in, right?
It's just it's those ones that we kind of see all the time that are just doing just enough until next time, just
And
enough.
that's why the clause is there for the admin fee, for repeat offenders, right? So if we go back, they fixed it and let's say just Band-Aid it and not fix the problem, right? And we have to go back within any length of time, really. then basically they're gonna get dinged at the min fee, right? And that's one of the things. So when somebody gets dinged at, and it's not a fine, it's an admin fee for the time it takes to deal with that over again after we thought it was done, right? So that was one thing. I think town of Yarmouth, that's where the idea of admin fee, and they just instituted it in town of Yarmouth
Do
as
you
well.
see those admitted fees as consecutive, or could you compound them?
I think that it'll be every time that you have to go back, so,
So separate occurrence?
yeah, separate occurrence.
Just in the penalty section, I know it's got a minimum of 100 up to 5,000, but each day would be considered a separate offense. Do we use that with respect to folks that have issues, or has that existed before?
That's in the NDA, actually.
Okay.
Yeah, so that, it's not that people use it every day, but it's a tool that can be used. If we have somebody that just blatantly ignores us, and, I mean, basically, before we institute that type of fine anyway, we would probably be doing a cleanup order.
Okay.
Right? So that's basically what we would do, because the exception of demolition of a building or house or whatever. And we would- that's a different process, because basically the administrator doesn't have the authority. That's still under council, and there is a public hearing involved where the person can come to council and say why he doesn't want the building tore down or whatever. Those are a lot of fun.
I imagine.
We haven't had any in a few years, but the ones that we have had have been a lot of fun.
All right, any other questions? So being a policy, we just make a motion to accept the policy.
Basically, it's a recommendation to council. Because this is your notice of a policy.
Should we get Bruce to speak on it? Anything you want to add to it?
No, I think it gives me more tools to act on, and I think things will speed up the process, because there's been an overabundance of repetitive offenders, and it's like Paul was saying, it's, that they're just doing very minimal to pass.
It's the same one, or two or three.
Yeah. So this time they'll have to have this copy.
Yeah.
Or checking, I should say.
Can we get a motion to take?
I make a motion that we take the administrative policy 2021-03, dangerous and unsightly premises policy to council for approval.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. H2, draft amendments of HR policy 2014-05, hours of work policy.
Okay, so basically, copies that you have, the amendments are in red, and for the most part, it's the hours of work of public works employees, and so which is basically that the public works department will be staffed 7 days per week as opposed to 5, and the weekly, and the regular weekly hours of work will be still 40 hours based on 5 8-hour shifts per, 8-hour shifts. beginning at 7:45 a.m. to 4:30 p.m. with an unpaid 45-minute lunch break. And the only other amendment was in roles and under governance, roles and responsibilities, and that would be to add, review this policy no later than 5 years from the date of adoption.
Any questions? Not we need a motion to take these policy changes, amendments to council.
I'll make a motion, the town of Digby HR policy number 2014-05, hours of work, be taken to council for approval.
No seconder.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed? Motion carried. Alright, moving on to quarterly meetings of council.
That's, basically predicated on an informal discussion. And what I mean is that council doesn't meet and just talk and hash out an idea in an informal setting. So my idea, first of all, was to maybe show some support for business in town and meet once a quarter as a group for lunch or for dinner and show our support for a restaurant or a cafe or a pub. Just to sort of informally, hash an idea, sound out something that might be interested in. Just a way to sort of not be so formal and be able to actually pitch an idea just to see if there's any interest, without going right to a formal process and having to put forward a committee or something like that. But it also shows our cohesiveness as a group in our community and our support for our business taxpayers.
So I guess the only comment I made in that email back is being in
Yeah.
the business is hard for me to do a lunch.
Yeah.
And,
But for a year,
yeah.
that's only one of the summer. Right?
Yeah. And I guess the other thing is sometimes it's busy for me personally. And I know this is more informal than the regular council.
Yep.
And no offense, I have enough meetings now. So, but if the others are, comments are comments, but I mean, it's hard to have a meeting outside the council, I guess. Whether it's under the MGA, where technically I don't think you're not allowed to meet and discuss things, are we?
If you meet as a group, then it's the council meeting,
Yeah.
and you have to be open to the public. Basically, I know I know exactly what you're trying to accomplish, and I know that I did have a discussion with the mayor, and had he been here, he'd probably say what he wanted to say. So, but I know that pre-COVID, there was one or two councilors, myself, one other staff person that met every morning for coffee, and we got ridiculed for it. Said that we were having secret council meetings, and that was just the run of the community, right? We did get, we had people coming in and said, "Oh, so what's on the agenda today, boys? What are you talking about today?" Right? And it's, we were both, we were talking about hockey and the weather and everything else. Mostly anything but council business. It was just, we happened to congregate there.
It's just another way to sort of get to know. I don't really know Mike that well. I know William quite well because we've done things together. Matt went to school with Peter. I don't really know all that well,
Yeah, and I know exactly.
Yeah.
Because it is, and I think the thing that we're missing because of COVID is the fact that some of the conferences and things that go on.
That's what we miss,
That's when you can get together socially and get to know one another and have a chin wag over a beer or whatever and not be constituted as having, root beer. And not be constituted as being in a council setting because you can, and, it's just difficult. And I think that's what's missing, the social part. Because the social outfall of COVID-19 really sucks, to be truthful. And, there's no interaction because not only do you get to interact with your own members of council that attend, but other councilors and other CAOs or whatever the case may be from all across the province. And you may be decide to go out to dinner and there could be, 3 or 4 from 2 or 3 units sitting together and just having a good meal and a good conversation. And getting to know one another.
As well as your member of parliament.
Yeah.
Provincial MLAs are at those functions too, so.
It's weird, I don't know how you feel about William, we're coming around the other way. We've never met some of these people that we are on conference calls with, where you guys probably have in person.
Yeah.
So you kind of don't really want to joke or anything too much because you don't know their personality or how they might take it, or, it's pretty hard to try and.
And there has been, but in the last election, there was a lot of turnover. So there are some that are no longer there. There's a lot of new faces on Waste Check, for instance. I don't, other than the chair and Guy from Argyle. I don't know if I know any of the new people that are there. And I've been on Waste Check before Waste Check was Waste Check. So, so I understand what you're saying, but I guess it's not just because you're new, because there's a whole bunch of new people.
Yeah.
So even the old people are lost.
With everything said, I still like the idea, even if it's not quarterly, but I understand if it's not something we can do, then we can't do it. But you would think where we're not having the social gatherings, twice a year, things where everybody gets together, that they'd make an exception to allow folks to, to get together and chat. And to be fair, if it's out in a restaurant, it's in the public. I'd pay for Leslie to show up and buy her coffee so she can take notes if we say anything we're not supposed to.
I think that the concept, is a good, and I understand, and I'm not gonna try to speak for the mayor because, the mayor has his own things, and maybe the best thing to do is table this until he has a chance to have his input in it as well.
Yeah.
Right. So, but, I mean, the thing is that, you can go and, have a good social evening or whatever at some place and take your spices or whatever, and that way it is deemed to be, right, social, you're out socially, you're not, it's just the 5 members of council went and sat it down at a restaurant, or 6 if I was included, or 7 if Leslie was included, or whatever the case may be. The public perception was that you're having council meetings out in the back, right?
Yeah.
I guess we're missing too, we haven't had New Year's levy, or this summer the mayor's tea, or any of those things, right?
Yeah. There's a lot of things that we don't get that we usually would have, that you get that social and be able to sit down and talk without worrying about whether the camera's recording you,
Even dinners I do with the African, Osage African Society, they have a dinner that we always do. Even staff appreciations for public works, no barbecues, you don't have barbecues or, so it is tough, like, I mean, fire department's a prime example where we're just, you can't do anything, and that's a social group, right? So, but, hopefully in the fall or next year, right, that'll change.
Society, we're hurting socially.
Yeah.
We didn't have the levy last year, I mean, that's, that was always a very popular one.
Nothing official.
Christmas tree lighting with the hot chocolate.
Same.
Yeah.
Same thing.
All right. So we can bring that up again.
Yeah, so if somebody want me to move the table, we'll put the next year only.
I'll make a motion that we table that, the quarter meetings of council until the mayor is in attendance and discuss accordingly at that time.
Second. It's a second, Paul, yes?
Yep.
Yeah, all right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. SFM report. Pass to you tonight.
Basically, this was sent by the mayor, and so this is his report. And I think it was some of the things that were talked about at the last mayors and wardens and CAO conference call. I wasn't able to attend that one, and so I have a conflict. So I guess this is his report.
Right. Information. I know the last one we were told at FCM one time, I believe the Prime Minister, that we were gonna get funds from the cannabis. I think at the UNSM meeting, it said it takes 5 years to determine whether the business makes profit, so we couldn't give you any money, so.
It was all smoky mirrors.
So the other thing on NSFM was the registration for the NSM Spring Conference, which is virtual. And the reason that we want to bring it to council's attention is that the 23rd is the early bird cutoff, which is the registration is $225. After that, it's $250. So if somebody wants to be registered, they can just let Leslie know.
I guess I just have if it's gonna be virtual, I have a hard time sitting in front of a computer getting anything out of it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I don't know how it's gonna work either, and I'm not too sure whether I'm gonna, and it's the same with the AMA one that's gonna be this spring as well, virtual. And, I guess the good thing about it is if, for us through the AMA is that most of it will be through the daytime, and if we wanna take something in, we can take it in, if we don't wanna take it in, we can continue to do our work and things like that, but still, AMA and NSFM, they're both struggling too with trying to, with finances and that, so they're trying to keep some revenue coming in, because they still got expenses, so. But anyway, if somebody's interested, for the 23rd or after, give it some thought and let Leslie know.
What's the date of the virtual?
That I don't know. Do you know, Leslie?
No.
Yeah, I can tell you right now. Just looking at it. May 6th and 7th. Coming right up.
So we're gonna move into camera, so.
There's no motions we gotta make without nothing came out.
So the motion for adjournment.
Yeah, no, motion for adjournment.
Who seconded that?
Peter.
Thank you.
But, back then, Tom,